Ready for adventure?
Always.
Well, then let's head to Nepal,
Okay.
to Chitwan National Park, to be more precise.
Ah, Chitwan.
It's famous for its amazing wildlife. You might even bump into a royal Bengal tiger on your morning walk there.
It's definitely possible.
Not to mention elephants, one-horned rhinos, crocodiles, tons of bird species. It's like a jungle trekker's dream come true.
It really is. And you know what makes Chitwan extra special? It's not just about those big, impressive animals everyone thinks of first.
What else is there?
Well, we're talking over 700 different kinds of wildlife, all playing their part in making this ecosystem so incredible.
Wow, 700. That's amazing. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of planning a trip to Chitwan, maybe we should clear up some confusion about the name itself. I was looking through our source material from David Ways.
Ah, yes, David Ways.
He's a Nepal guidebook author. Anyway, his articles, which were last updated in 2025, will be our guide today.
Great source.
And in his work, he points out a bit of a naming quirk that we should probably explain.
Yeah, the name Chitwan can be a little tricky because it refers to both the national park itself and the general area. So when you're planning a trip, you have to be careful to distinguish between Chitwan, the park, and Saraha.
Saraha.
That's the town right outside the park. Most of the accommodations and tour operators are based there.
Ah, I see. So it's like Chitwan's the main attraction, the jungle, the wild part, and Saraha's like the gateway where you set up your base camp.
Precisely.
So if a travel agent tells me I'll be staying inside Chitwan, they probably mean Saraha, not literally inside the park, right?
Exactly. And knowing that difference is important because some agents might try to use that inside the park thing to make the prices seem higher. You should always double check where your accommodation is actually located. Make sure you're getting a fair price.
Good point. Transparency is key, especially when planning a trip like this. Okay, now let's talk about getting to Chitwan. What are the transport options? And what should our listeners keep in mind when making their choice?
Well, there are a bunch of options, each with pros and cons. If you're on a budget, the classic tourist bus is a solid choice. They leave daily from Kathmandu and Pokhara.
How long's the journey?
About 4 to 6 hours.
Okay.
Cost is between 700 and 1,000 rupees. Not too bad for the distance.
That sounds reasonable. But I imagine there's a catch, right? Don't road conditions in Nepal have a reputation for being a bit unpredictable?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Especially the road work around Muggling. Every year they promise it'll be better, but it's best to plan for delays. And if you're someone who gets motion sickness, easily pack some medicine for that.
Good advice. So tourist buses for budget travelers. What if you want a bit more luxury for the journey?
You could think about the luxury tourist buses.
Like what?
Companies like Mountain Overland. They have more spacious seats, air conditioning, a smoother ride overall. But of course, it's going to cost a bit more. Around 10 to 12 US dollars.
That's not terrible, though, especially if you're splitting the cost with some travel buddies. Okay, what about minivans? I've heard those are an option, too.
They are, and they're definitely the cheapest, around 400 rupees.
Why so cheap?
Well, they tend to be crowded, less safe, and they'll probably drop you off at Tadi Bazaar. That's a bit outside the Saraha town center, so you'd need to take a rickshaw or taxi from there.
Okay, so maybe not the most convenient or comfortable for everyone, but for some, the price might be right. What about private car hire for those who value flexibility and convenience over everything else?
That's definitely a great option if you're in a group or if you just prefer a door-to-door service. Easy to arrange it through travel agencies.
And the price.
It'll cost you about 70 US dollars, but you're paying for that convenience and flexibility. You can even make stops along the way.
I like that. Some scenic photo ops. What about flying? For those who are short on time, that's got to be the fastest, right?
Yeah, flying's definitely the quickest. You'd fly into Bharatpur Airport. It's about 10 kilometers from the park.
Are there direct flights?
Yeah, from Kathmandu and Pokhara. But it is going to be the most expensive option. Tickets are about 170 and 180 US dollars, respectively. Little tip, though. Booking through local agents can often be cheaper and less hassle than going directly through the airlines.
Good to know. So let's say we've made it. We're at the Saraha bus stop, ready for our jungle adventure. But before we go any further, I feel like there's something we need to warn our listeners about.
Ah, yes. The Saraha bus stop. It can be a bit overwhelming. All those enthusiastic folks offering seemingly super cheap rides into town.
Yeah.
Be cautious. Those offers often come with strings attached.
Like what?
Like they might take you to specific guest houses that aren't your top choice, or you might end up paying way more than you expected.
So it's like a jungle out there even before you actually get into the jungle.
Exactly.
So what's the best way to handle arriving at the bus stop?
Be honest and assertive. If you've already booked a hotel, tell them the name right away. That often discourages those persistent touts.
Yeah.
Or, if you're open to exploring different options, it's totally manageable to just walk into town. It's about a 20-minute walk, gives you a chance to get a feel for the place and check out some accommodations.
I like that. A little pre-adventure exploration. Now, let's talk jungle treks. That's what most people come to Chitwan for, right?
Absolutely. It's the quintessential Chitwan experience. And the best part is there are treks for everyone, no matter how fit you are or how much time you have.
So walk us through the options.
Okay, you've got half-day, full-day, 2-3-day treks, even longer expeditions if you're really adventurous. Prices vary depending on the length and group size, but to give you an idea, a half-day tour is about 1,400 rupees. Full day is around 1,800 for a group of 4. Longer treks obviously are more expensive. They can range from 3,000 to 3,500 rupees per day.
So choosing the right trek length really depends on your fitness level, budget, and how much you want to immerse yourself in the jungle.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Within Chitwan National Park, there are 3 zones.
Oh,
Each offers a different level of immersion and wildlife viewing.
that's cool. Tell me more about these zones.
It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure. The first zone is easy to get to, good for shorter treks. You'll see lots of birds, deer, maybe some monkeys, but your chances of seeing a tiger or rhino are pretty low. Then there's the second zone, takes a bit more effort to reach but better rewards. You're more likely to see rhinos there and maybe even a tiger if you're lucky.
Ooh, exciting.
And then there's the third zone, most remote and challenging, reserved for the longer expeditions.
So the deeper you go, the wilder it gets, and the more likely you are to see those elusive tigers.
Exactly. But if you're short on time or prefer a more comfortable way to get to those deeper areas, Jeep safaris are a great option.
Jeep safaris, tell me more.
They cost a bit more than jungle walks, around $180 per day, but they often include accommodation and food. It's like a package deal that takes you deep into the jungle, covering more ground than you could on foot.
That sounds fun. What about private jungle treks? What makes those special?
Private treks give you the ultimate flexibility. You set the pace, customize the route, and you have a guide who's focused entirely on your group. It's your own personal jungle expedition.
Amazing. I bet those are pricey, though.
They can be. And you'll need to be good at bargaining to get a fair price. But if you really value independence and a tailored experience, they're worth considering.
So we've got jungle walks, cheap safaris, and private treks. But there's one more iconic Chitwan experience we haven't mentioned yet.
You're talking about elephant jungle treks.
Yes. It almost feels like a rite of passage in Chitwan to see these majestic creatures up close. But I know this is also a bit of a controversial topic.
Yeah, elephant tourism is definitely complex. Lots of ethical considerations to think about.
On one hand, you have this amazing opportunity to interact with these magnificent animals. But on the other hand, we have to be aware of their welfare. We don't want to contribute to anything harmful.
Absolutely. And it's important to understand that elephant tourism in Chitwan is closely linked to conservation efforts. The money made from activities like elephant treks directly funds anti-poaching patrols and helps protect endangered species like tigers and rhinos.
So it's not as simple as saying all elephant tourism is bad.
Nope, it's much more nuanced. We encourage our listeners to do their research, look into it, form their own opinions. There are different approaches to elephant tourism, and some operators care more about the animal's well-being than others.
Good point. We should definitely delve into the ethical side of things a bit more later on. But for now, let's switch gears and talk about other things you can do in Chitwan besides those jungle treks and elephant encounters.
Okay.
What else is there?
Plenty. I highly recommend visiting a Tharu village.
The Tharu people.
Yes, the indigenous community of this region.
What makes their villages so special?
They have such a rich culture, very connected to the land and the jungle. Their villages are a testament to how they live in harmony with nature. You can often see their traditional homes built on stilts to avoid flooding during monsoon season. And they're beautifully decorated with carvings and murals.
Sounds like a great blend of cultural immersion and beautiful architecture. What if you're looking for a more structured cultural experience?
There are 2 Tharu cultural centers in Saraha.
Oh.
You can see traditional dances, music, and crafts. It's a great way to learn about their customs and traditions.
Sounds lovely. What about the Elephant Breeding Center? I've seen some adorable photos online.
It's definitely a highlight, especially for animal lovers.
What happens there?
They set it up to protect endangered elephants. You can often see baby elephants playing there. It's really cute. There's also a museum where you can learn about the history and conservation work surrounding elephants.
Sounds like a must visit.
Oh.
Okay, so we've got Ox cart rides, riverboating, canoeing. Wait, didn't we talk about crocodiles before? They're a real danger in Chitwan, right?
Yes, crocodiles are a potential danger, especially around rivers.
So what should people do?
Be sensible, follow your guide's instructions, and definitely don't swim in crocodile-infested waters.
Uh-huh. Good advice. Speaking of safety, I think it's time we touch on some essential information and potential risks. Things our listeners should know before heading to Chitwan.
Definitely a good idea. Always better to be prepared. First off, you'll need a park entrance fee for Chitwan National Park.
How much is that?
Right now, it's 2,000 rupees per day for foreigners.
Okay.
But sometimes this fee is included in package tours, so double check that when you're booking. And as we said before, common sense is super important in a jungle environment.
Makes sense. Are there any creatures in particular we should avoid?
Besides crocodiles, which we already mentioned, there are tigers, elephants, rhinos, snakes. Even those seemingly cuddly sloth bears can be dangerous.
Wait, sloth bears?
Oh yeah, they can be surprisingly aggressive, especially if they feel threatened.
They're not as slothful as their name suggests.
Nope. Just a good reminder that we're visitors in their home. Always follow your guide's instructions, never trek alone, and be respectful of the wildlife.
Good advice.
Huh?
Anything else?
Oh, and don't forget about mosquito-borne illnesses like malaria and dengue fever. Those are a risk in the area too.
Right, bug spray is a must-pack item.
Mm-hmm.
What about saving money? Any tips for our budget-conscious listeners?
Booking tours in Saraha is usually cheaper than booking online or through agencies in Kathmandu or Pokhara.
So shop around, compare prices.
Yeah. And here's a little trick. If you buy a full-day park ticket after 2 p.m., you can fit in a late afternoon elephant tour on that same day.
Oh, so you get a bonus activity. That's clever. I'm sensing a theme here. Information is power when it comes to planning a trip to Chitwan.
It really is. The more you know, the better prepared you'll be to handle any situation and really make the most of your experience.
I think we've covered a lot of ground already in this first part of our Chitwan exploration. From transport and accommodation to all the different types of treks and, of course, safety. We've really laid the groundwork for an amazing adventure.
Yeah, and we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover. We have, haven't we? It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. From navigating that Saraha bus stop to figuring out which jungle trek is right for you. And let's not forget those sloth bears. Who knew they could be so feisty?
They're definitely a reminder that even the cutest creatures can surprise you. But speaking of surprises, I think it's time to tackle the elephant in the room.
You mean elephant tourism?
Exactly. It's a complex issue that always sparks a lot of debate. Before the break, we were discussing how in Chitwan, elephant tourism is actually tied to conservation work. Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure. You were saying the money tourists spend on elephant encounters actually helps protect the animals they're there to see.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, right? It's a tough situation because on the one hand, you have the possibility of exploitation, but on the other hand, the system is set up so that tourism is directly contributing to the survival of these amazing creatures.
It sounds like finding that balance between tourism and animal welfare is really key. What steps are being taken in Chitwan to make sure the elephants are treated ethically and humanely?
Well, there's a growing movement in Chitwan to shift towards more responsible and sustainable practices when it comes to elephant tourism.
How so?
Organizations like the United Elephant Cooperative are working with the mahouts and local communities to encourage things like chain-free elephant keeping, positive reinforcement training, and just generally focusing on the elephant's well-being.
Chain-free elephant keeping. Can you explain what that means?
Basically, it means giving elephants more freedom to move around and socialize naturally, instead of being chained up all the time. It's about creating an environment where they can behave naturally and live a better life.
So it's not just about taking the chains off. It's about giving them more autonomy, recognizing them as intelligent social creatures with their own needs.
Exactly. And the positive reinforcement training methods are important too. Instead of punishment, mahouts are being trained to use rewards and encouragement.
That makes sense.
Makes for a happier elephant and a safer experience for everyone.
So a win-win. You mentioned that the United Elephant Cooperative works directly with the mahouts and the local community. Why is that collaboration so important?
Well, mahouts have a deep connection with elephants in Nepal, culturally. Their knowledge is invaluable. But it's also about giving them the right tools and resources to care for the elephants ethically, according to modern standards. And getting the community involved ensures that these changes are lasting and benefit everyone.
It's about finding solutions that work for both the animals and the people who depend on them. What advice would you give to our listeners who are planning a trip to Chitwan and might want to take part in elephant-related activities?
I'd say the most important thing is to do your research. Look for tour operators who are open about their practices, who are part of organizations like the United Elephant Cooperative, and who have a good reputation for caring about the elephants.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right. And when you're in Chitwan, take the opportunity to really learn. Visit the breeding center, talk to the mahouts, see how the elephants behave. The more you understand, the better choices you can make.
It's about being an informed and responsible traveler. Okay, let's move on from elephants for a bit. What other wildlife can people expect to see in Chitwan?
Oh, Chitwan is full of amazing creatures. You've got crocodiles basking along the Rapti River, spotted deer in the grasslands, and tons of incredible birds. A birdwatcher's paradise.
Birds, huh? I'm a bit of a bird nerd myself. Tell me more.
Over 540 bird species have been recorded in Chitwan. Everything from peacocks showing off their feathers to the gray-crowned prinia with its beautiful song. You might even see the greater racket-tailed drongo, known for its acrobatics and its ability to mimic other sounds.
It's amazing, all that diversity. So it's not just about tigers and rhinos, it's about appreciating the whole tapestry of life there.
Exactly. And let's not forget the plants. Sal trees, orchids, wildflowers. The air is filled with amazing scents. It's a real sensory overload in a good way.
It sounds incredible. Okay, we've talked about the wildlife and the jungle, but we should also talk about the people of Chitwan. Earlier we mentioned the Tharu people and their unique culture. What are their villages actually like?
Picture this. Traditional homes, often raised on stilts to deal with monsoon flooding. The walls are decorated with intricate carvings and colorful murals, showing scenes from their daily lives and mythology. They have such a deep respect for nature, it's reflected in their architecture.
A beautiful mix of practicality and art. How can visitors experience Tharu culture firsthand?
There are a few ways. You can visit authentic Tharu villages, either on your own or with a guide. Many villages are happy to welcome visitors. You can see traditional dances, try the local food, learn about their customs, or you can visit the Tharu cultural centers in Saraha. Those offer a more structured way to learn about their history, music, and crafts.
So it's not just about watching from a distance, it's about engaging with the Tharu people and learning from them. Okay, let's talk about the elephant breeding center again. I think our listeners would like to hear more about it.
It's a fascinating place. They established it to help protect endangered elephants. You can see mothers and calves interacting, learn about the breeding program, and even watch the mahouts caring for the elephants. It's a really unique opportunity to see them up close in a safe environment.
Sounds like a great place to learn about conservation efforts. Speaking of which, maybe we should address the challenges facing Chitwan National Park and what's being done to protect it.
Definitely. Chitwan is a precious ecosystem, but like so many protected areas, it faces threats.
Like what?
Habitat loss is a big one. Then there's poaching and human-wildlife conflict. As the human population keeps growing, there's more pressure on the land around the park. People encroach for agriculture, settlements, infrastructure. It fragments the habitat, making it harder for wildlife to survive.
And poaching. I know that's been a huge problem in the past.
It has, especially for tigers and rhinos. Their body parts are very valuable. But the good news is the park authorities have really cracked down on poaching. They've increased patrols, they have community programs, and the penalties are much harsher now.
So it's an ongoing battle to protect those endangered species. You also mentioned human-wildlife conflict. How does that play out in Chitwan?
Well, as people move closer to the park, encounters with wild animals become more common. You get elephants raiding crops, tigers attacking livestock, even crocodiles attacking people who get too close to the water.
It's such a delicate balance trying to protect both human lives and the wildlife. How are they trying to mitigate this conflict?
A few different ways. They're creating buffer zones around the park where human activities are limited. They're working with communities to develop strategies like fences and early warning systems.
I imagine education is a big part of it too.
Huge. Raising awareness about conservation and teaching people how to live safely alongside wildlife. It's about understanding that we're all connected and that protecting Chitwan benefits everyone.
Well said. We've covered a lot of heavy stuff in this segment. Maybe we should end on a positive note. What are some encouraging signs that give you hope for Chitwan's future?
Despite the challenges, there's a lot to be optimistic about. Nepal's done an amazing job with tiger conservation. The tiger population in Chitwan has actually been going up.
That's fantastic. Why is that?
It's because of the anti-poaching measures, habitat restoration, and community involvement. It shows what dedication and hard work can do.
That's truly inspiring. What other positive developments have you noticed?
I'm seeing a lot more awareness among tourists and tour operators about ethical and sustainable tourism. People are choosing companies that care about the animals and the environment.
So responsible tourism is on the rise.
It is. And local communities are playing a bigger role in conservation, too. When people see the value in protecting their natural heritage, they become the best protectors.
It's about giving them a voice, making them part of the solution. Powerful stuff. Before we move on to the practicalities of planning a trip, let's circle back to elephant tourism for a minute.
Okay.
We discussed the efforts to make it more ethical, but there's still that debate about elephant riding. Should it be banned outright, or can it be done responsibly? What's your take?
It's tough. I think any interaction with elephants, whether it's riding, bathing, or just watching them, should be done with respect for their well-being. If you do choose to ride an elephant, make sure the operator is treating their animals right.
Look for signs like chain-free keeping, positive reinforcement, limited riding time.
Yes. It's not about being for or against riding, but about making informed choices. At the end of the day, it's about finding that balance between tourism, conservation, and the welfare of these incredible animals.
I think that's a great segue into our next segment, where we'll give our listeners all the practical info they need to plan their own trip to Chitwan. Everything from transport and accommodation to budgeting and packing tips. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered the wonders of Chitwan, the wildlife, the Tharu culture, and the elephant tourism situation.
A lot of ground covered.
We have. Now let's get practical. Help our listeners plan their trip.
Sounds good.
First question, budget. How much we expect to spend on a trip to Chitwan?
That always depends on your travel style, right? How fancy you want things to be. But in Saraha, you've got options, from budget guest houses to more upscale places.
So there's something for everyone. What about activities? The costs probably vary a lot.
They do. Jungle walks are usually the cheapest. Jeep safaris and elephant tours are more expensive. Food's not too bad, especially if you eat at local places.
Can you give us a rough estimate of how much a trip might cost, just to give our listeners an idea?
Sure. For a comfortable mid-range trip, let's say accommodation, food, activities, transport, all included, you're probably looking at $50 to $70 per day. But you can definitely do it for less if you're on a tight budget, or, you could splash out and spend more for a luxury experience.
Flexibility is key. What about transport? Any tips for getting the best deals?
For budget travelers, the tourist bus is still a good bet. Sometimes you can save a few rupees by buying tickets directly at the bus stop instead of through an agency. And for flights, remember that local travel agents often have better prices than the airlines themselves.
Good advice. Now for the fun part, packing. What are the absolute essentials for a jungle adventure in Chitwan?
Comfortable clothes that breathe, lightweight pants, long-sleeve shirts, hat for sun protection.
Swimsuit if you're planning to use the hotel pool.
Exactly, and bug spray.
Oh, right, the mosquitoes.
Definitely. A strong insect repellent is key, especially during monsoon season.
What about if it rains?
Even in the drier months, it's smart to pack a light rain jacket. Weather in Chitwan can be unpredictable.
Always be prepared. Shoes. I'm guessing hiking boots.
Yes, for jungle walks, you'll need closed-toe shoes. Hiking boots are ideal, especially for longer treks. But if you're mostly doing short walks or jeep safaris, comfy sneakers will work. Just make sure they have good grip.
So we've got clothes, bug spray, rain gear, sturdy shoes. Anything else?
Sunscreen. Sun's pretty strong there. A reusable water bottle. And a first aid kit is always a good idea, especially if you're going off the beaten path.
And a camera, of course.
Absolutely. You'll want to capture all those amazing sights.
Okay, so we've covered the practical stuff. Now let's zoom out a bit. What are some key takeaways or insights for our listeners as they plan their trip to Chitwan?
I think the most important thing is to remember that Chitwan is more than just a national park. It's a place where you can really see the connection between nature and culture.
It's not just about checking things off a list.
Right. It's about experiencing the jungle, the people, everything. Take your time, savor it all, listen to the sounds of the jungle, try the local food, talk to the people you meet.
And as we talked about, be a responsible traveler. Choose ethical tour operators, support conservation efforts, be aware of your impact on the environment and the animals.
Exactly. Even small choices can make a difference. And finally, go into this adventure with a sense of curiosity, wonder, and respect. Chitwan is a truly special place.
Well said. So there you have it, folks, your ultimate guide to Chitwan National Park. We hope this episode has inspired you to experience the magic of Chitwan for yourself. Big thanks to David Ways, whose articles have been so helpful. Check out his website, The Longest Way Home, for more travel inspiration and tips for exploring Nepal. And until next time, happy travels.